What's going on YouTube? This is Tinytank Reacts. Today we're going to be doing part 2 of Reddit memes. I hope you enjoy. Let's get it started. What did another person do that accidentally turned you on? I had a friend that had brown hair but wanted to dye it light blonde. She accidentally messed up the process and dyed it almost milky white. Somehow it looks way better since chicks with white hair have been like magnets to my eyes. Pretty late to the party, but here's mine. The left side of my back, just under my shoulder blade, keeps tightening up and is incredibly painful. After about 2 months of just dealing with the pain, it became too great. So I finally swallowed my pride and went to the doctor. As I was sitting there on the table being examined, the doctor ran his knuckles down my back a few times, checking different muscles and such. He ran down smack dab on the exact spot of my reoccurring back pain. The sudden pain released, followed by a tidal wave of euphoria immediately afterwards, caused me to let out some kind of sound that was a mixture between a painful grunt and a hypersexual moan. My face goes immediately red, and I apologize profusely. My doctor had a good chuckle over it and continued the examination. I have never been into pain of any kind, but that doctor hit that spot just one more time and I'd be gay for a day. Right then and there. I had a similar problem, a stress-related muscle glitch, in the middle of my back. I went to the chiropractor, male like me. He called in his masseuse. He said it looked like half of a golf ball was under my skin. She was a middle-aged woman, about 5 foot tall and 3 foot wide, and it worked on something but not that spot. I walked out of there feeling like I had just had the best sex of my life. I was sitting with a friend who was teaching me how to tie a bunch of knots and hitches, figure eights, cloved hitches, bowlines. Then he puts a handcuff knot on me and yanks me to my feet by my wrist. By the time I look at his face and how fast other friends whipped their heads around to look at us, I must have made a noise. Whoops. In college, one of my professors was a former law enforcement, and he picked me from the class to demonstrate how an interrogation might go. He had me sit in a seat directly across from him and demonstrated how he would slowly move closer and closer to the person being interrogated, up until the point where he had his knee between mine. It's kind of a thing for me now. Couple of construction guys unloaded some things from a delivery truck for us. We had hand trucks there to carry them in, ridiculously heavy boxes. They either didn't see or ignored the hand trucks, and each threw one up over their shoulder like it weighed nothing, then carried them the long walk around the building to their destination. I couldn't slide one of the boxes off the top of the other due to the weight. My co-worker and I had immediate reaction to this, and still talk about it years later. Her girl I was seeing and I were at her pool. Her mom brought us popsicles. We started eating them, but they began to melt. So I scarfed mine down, she didn't. Her popsicle broke off the stick and fell onto her chest. She quickly ran her hand up her chest to get it. I had to hop in the pool to hide my rager. He was writing a fictional story and I was rather invested in it. Then he killed off one of the main characters and the story ended in a savagely sad turn of events. It was a great plot twist and I knew it was coming, but it still caught me off guard. I jumped up playfully, yelling and throwing soft punches at his arm. It brought a huge smile to his face and he caught both my arms and held me there. It was 3 a.m., the room was dark, his hands were wrapped tightly around both my tiny wrists. I was typically play-fight stance, and his eyes were bright and they were locked onto mine. He smiled so big. Are you going to calm down? I've never wanted to kiss someone so badly in my entire life. I was a drama club kid when I was in high school. We were doing an improv practice from a scene where one of us was threatening the other. I pointed onto my partner's face, and she grabbed my arm, twisted it over my head, pushing me against the wall.
Bruh.
When I first met my wife, I was a tourist in her city. She took charge and showed me all over the city, using need to buy a new purse as an excuse. Most of the summer, she took charge on what we were doing. I really appreciated it since I didn't speak the language or know the city. As a guy, I never had been treated like this with dating. Clearly it worked because I put a ring on that fast. Dated a guy who was fantastic in bed. Before the first time we hooked, I was leaning against his bed. He stood a few feet away from me, unstrapping his watch, while he asked me what my hard limits were. Not even making eye contact, and immediately after it was off, he pounced on me. Now I just love when people take off watches. You know the thing that happens when two people are trying to pass each other in a tight space, and you both go the same way for a few times in a row, and it gets increasingly awkward? A boy I had a crush on ended this by picking me up, turning around, and putting me back down gently. I blushed. I wanted him to hook me. It was a confusing mess. When I was in college, there was a fellow student who worked on the campus groundskeeping crew. He wasn't traditionally hot, but had a decent dad bod and this charming Georgia accent. Anyway, one day he was building something outside the girls' dorm and it caught my eye. Other girls noticed too, and soon there was a little crowd of girls silently gathered around the window watching him do his thing. At one point he picked up a giant piece of fencing like it weighed next to nothing and dropped it somewhere else. There was a collective of sighs of appreciation from the room, and one girl whispered, "That was so manly." Her voice broke the spell and we all laughed, but I think we were all just super turned on. A co-worker and I were really good work buddies based in Houston. We were both late 20s at the time. We were sent to another branch for a strategy meeting before they flew us and another member of the San Francisco team to England. We flew from Houston to San Francisco. The next day, a flight from San Francisco to New England, Boston, and then on to London. Basically, a ton of sitting and being uncomfortable for hours. So she had some sort of arthritis and it was having a flare-up, and it was extremely uncomfortable. She said her legs and feet were driving her crazy on the flight. Much later, on the flight to England, she said she was on the verge of crying. I said, "What if I rub your leg?" And she immediately said, "Please." Spent the next few hours watching a movie and rubbing her legs and feet. She was propped up against the window and her legs were in my lap. Raging boner for hours. The flight back, she wore shorts and brought a lotion out and asked me to do it again. Raging boner. When you are sitting next to somebody by the table and your leg accidentally touches theirs, I have to admit that turns me on, especially when I'm wearing a dress or shorts at the moment. First date, crossing a busy street, he puts his hand on my back, round my waist to kindly guide me across, pull me closer to him. That's not new move by any means, but holy it went from he's cute and sweet to sizzling chemistry right then and there. First day at one of my old jobs, I walked into the control room and meet one of my new bosses. She's really hot, her perfume is exotic. She's 2 years younger than me, she's able to fire me, and I have to spend 8 hours shadowing her. That day was an endurance test. At one point her hand accidentally brushed my pants, west of the growing area over the pockets. Almost death stared my undergarments right there. When a female co-worker pulled up her shirt to show me her tummy and asked me something about it, baggy t-shirt, baggy sports pants, tight stomach, the absolute dream. I have a stomach fetish. A friend of mine invited me and another friend out for milkshakes, and at one point she got some of hers on her fingertips, so she licked them off. I felt very flustered about this, so I turned to my other friend who was also licking milkshake off her fingertips. Anyway, turns out I'm a lesbian. My current SO and I met through work, and we had a trainer-trainee relationship. I like being dominated, so his authority turned me on. He trained me for a few weeks and was pretty serious and professional up till the end. At the end of our shift, I was being stupid and flirtatious. He threatened to slap me. I was like, "Do it," and he tapped my cheek. Much to my delight, he did it, lightly but firmly too, and then he went and saw my look of shock and let out the heartiest laugh I'd ever heard from him. I was immediately wet. I could feel my face burning, and I had to make up an excuse to step away. Good God, I did find out later, he was hard as a rock during that incident too. Ha ha, what a keeper. She was playing footsie with me in Spanish class, sitting across from each other, and eventually just set her foot down on my seat between my legs, and then she accidentally kicked my hard. It wasn't painful at all, but holy I was hard for hours. I don't know why. One time in dance class in college, we were doing partner stretches, and this really attractive but very gay classmate of mine was my partner. I was in a straddle, and he was pushing and laying on my back so that I was flat against the ground. It hurt so good that I had an orgasm. Yeep. Wasn't an accident on their part, but usually I don't get turned on easily. I used to have a coworker at a job, and she was stupidly flirtatious. Had a phenomenal act too. Used to do just cheeky things at work, but one day I leaned over behind her to use the tap past her shoulder, and she licked down the side of my face. 10 seconds later, I felt Joe Fozzie Jr. on the rise, so I had to go to the bathroom and sit for a few minutes to prevent the worst. She was so proud of that. Miss working with her. One time, my husband backed our truck into a really small space downtown in one quick sweep. I don't know if it was his impressive, precise parking skills or the notion of fitting something so big into such a tight space so smoothly like that turned me on. Bit weird, but in high school I used to shake my leg up and down a lot for some reason. But I was sitting next to this girl I liked, and her leg was basically touching my leg because the small desks. So while my leg was basically shaking hers, I guess she liked it because she gave me a quiet moan and put her hand on my arm. Teenage me popped quite the chub. Well, ladies and gentlemen, if you've made it this far in the video, you're a champion. If you do like the video, drop me a like, subscribe to my channel, and I hope you've enjoyed your stay here with Tinytank Reacts, and thank you very much. Don't forget to click the bell notification to let you know when the next video goes up. Tinytank Reacts out.